You are listening to the 5 Squared Podcast, the podcast where we bring you tips for your business and your life. Our goal is to leave you smarter with ideas, wisdom, tools, and entertained. The 5 Squared Podcast is produced weekly for your enrichment. Come back often and feel free to add the podcast to your favorite RSS feed or iTunes. You can also follow me on Twitter at 5 Squared and Facebook. All the links are in the show notes. Now let's get started with your host, business consultant, executive coach, and founder of 5 Squared, Tim Fives.
All right, welcome back to the 5 Squared Podcast with your host, Tim Fives, and my ever so hysterical sidekick, Devon. We'll leave it at that for the day. So, what's the topic today, Devon?
Finding a career, job hunting.
Yeah. Job hunting. Yeah. You know, that's one of my favorite things to do for people is help them find jobs that they love. They love. Not just a job, but the careers of their dreams. I don't know why I'm being snarky. Guess it's just because it's the end of the day. Good day here at 5 Squared. So, what are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, if you asked me, I don't know, 6 months ago or so, I'd still be going through that process, and I have a different perspective now than I did then.
Well, let's talk because you're newer into the workforce, recent graduate. How do you think that college prepared you to find a job?
Well, it's actually kind of fun. Towards the end, it's like almost like they should teach a class on everything to go along with finding a job, interviewing and so on, because like personally I didn't do any internships during college. I just worked practically full time over the summers, and so I only had that really one interview for that job, and then I started interviewing for jobs at the beginning of this year, and it's just like, man, I suck at interviewing.
So what did you find that sucked? Like, what was the hardest part of that?
Well, typically there were phone interviews to start off with, and
which, for the record, I hate phone interviews.
Yeah, me too. And it's kind of awkward. You're not seeing the person. You can only go off their voice.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sometimes more of a visual person, so I look for those cues and facial expressions and things like that. But
yeah, it's always hard to read to somebody. And I mean, and when we talk about that in business, like that's a huge part of that. Mm-hmm. The body language, facial expressions. Are they interested? Are they not? How are they reacting? And it's hard to do over the phone. So, did you have any success over the phone?
Not really. And then in person, it was either hit or miss. And I think that's it just comes down to first impression, because there'd be companies that have like 3 rounds of interviews, and you kill the first 2, and then you get to the last one, and just because that person, wasn't very impressed, or maybe I didn't perform as well during that one, that it just, that just kind of screwed over the whole process.
Yeah. So I'm working with a guy right now who's going through this, and I don't think that this is just for people entering the workforce. I think this is something that for people that have been even in the workforce for a while that aren't, because it's not like riding a bike. It's not a skill you use every day, and we always take in whether it's poor language habits that we develop or whatever. And that gentleman, he would have a lot of filler words, and he'd start everything with like, "Well." Mm-hmm. It's like, well, that's a really horrible way to start an answer where you need to be an authority on that answer. It's a weak word. So there's a lot of coaching that goes into that, and me in practice, and that's what he and I did quite a bit of through his job search. And it took a little while for him to get comfortable with that, and now we're I'm happy to say he's starting to get offers, and the interviews are going well, and now we can be selective on the right job. But that is always something that baffles me, especially when you're the interviewer and somebody comes in and you're like, yeah, I think they're smart, but their language skills sucks, mm-hmm. or their resume is awful, or whatever. So, what were some of your other experiences when you were interviewing? Like, do you remember any of the questions that you were being asked?
Well, question-wise, so there'd either be ones that you could obviously answer, and those are all the typical ones that you prepare for, strengths and weaknesses, kind of what you like, what do you bring to the table? You know, all those basic questions. But then they'd always throw this like sidewinder that it's like, you know, you'd have to have them repeat it once or twice because you're stalling because you don't know what to answer, and then you just butcher it, and that's just how like there were some they give you a list of questions to prepare for, but then they don't only ask those questions. You know, they were it's that what is it, the STAR method of interviewing: situation, task, action, result. And so like, you know, if you didn't have one prepared for that, yeah, you were kind of screwed. You know, and then you look like an idiot. But it wasn't, and like if you step back a second, like kind of looking at it as a whole, like me looking back, like I only looked at like the job boards, and I only looked at, you know, Glassdoor and Indeed and all those websites. I would have started with, you know, now I know this, but like, you know, I would have started with people I knew, you know, friends, family, you know, my friends' parents, and, you know, like those connections, and went from there, because I think, you know, I would have had a lot more success going after that route than just applying online and sending my resume.
Well, and that's something that I teach people how to do, is how to leverage their networks for multiple reasons. One is because one of the primary reasons is because you have all the gatekeepers between the candidate and the actual job, right? So you may have a recruiter. Well, first thing is Glassdoor or the boards, and then whatever computer system sorts the resume out on the submission, and then after that, even if that submission gets to the HR director or analyst or whatever, then they're going to screen it. And so there's just a bunch of steps together, and it's far more effective to get to somebody that's in the company that needs that role filled, and have them kind of be like, hey, just walk this through the process. So that's one benefit. And then the other one is to get intelligence about the company that you may or may not want to work for, right? Well, because you can get a lot of no, you don't want to work there because that guy's crazy. Oh wait, am I talking about myself? No. Anyway, but yeah, that's
exactly. See, I had no one to talk to.
Careful. Yeah. Careful.
You can edit that part out.
Yeah. We have a lot of fun here at 5 Squared. It's great. It's a good time. A slave driver. Yeah. And that's what the gentleman that one of the gentlemen that I'm working with right now that's going through that interview process is being able to have the authority to go in and then ask the questions to find out during the interview process as well, is this a place that I want to work? Because most of society gets trapped into the I need a job and the money and the pay, and that's the primary focus that they're looking on, not the working conditions or anything else. That those people that want that work-life balance and the actual job that's going to be fulfilling for them, is they generally don't look at that. They're like, well, what's the price tag? Like, what am I going to get paid? And then they'll get a little bit more than they had at the last job, but yet they're treated worse, or the hours suck, or the work is far more demanding, and it's not in line with what they're actually getting paid now. So, yeah. What else?
Well, going off that, I mean, that was another thing. Like, coming out of college, I mean, going into college, you know, 6 months ago, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I mean, me coming out, when I would search, in my head, it was like, okay, I want to at least make X starting, and, you know, here's a couple of my skills, and here's some job titles that might, you know, I thought I might like. So that was like looking into like some of the marketing stuff, looking into like some recruiting, some HR type stuff, like, but I didn't know specifically what I wanted to do, and so that kind of was in my head. It was like, oh, okay, I'm leaving options open, but then also it's like shooting myself in the foot, because it's, you know, I'm not really narrowing down what I want.
Yeah. No, which is another key point is, you know, to get the job that's going to be fulfilling and for an individual, they have to be specific. That's one of the other main components that we look at, is getting specific, because that's another kind of trap that people fall into. Well, I have all of these skills, or I can do all of these different things, and then you come off as a generalist or somebody that's not specialized or have that key talent that you want, versus if you're focused, you can portray that and whatnot. So what do you think the college, since you're the token college kid here, could have done better to prepare you for your job search?
Well, I mean, I was lucky enough to have like professors that I was close with that were willing. I could go to them, talk to them. I mean, they gave me some job recommendations. They so I somewhat used my network.
Yeah, no, that's good.
School wise, like I've had some of my professors give me like a contact point into companies, and so like I was good in that sense. But like the one I went after, it was it was a little bit too. I wasn't qualified enough, and so I didn't really get anywhere with that one. Another one didn't really interest me. So but overall, like I said, almost like a class, but if not a class, like something that's kind of built into like it's required in the curriculum, because like that's kind of how high school was. Like high school had like a class that kind of somewhat prepared you, to move on, wrap up high school and you're going into college or your trade or you're going to work or whatever the case may be. So I feel like something of that nature, because not everyone was like me. I mean, and I know there's kids that were more active than I was, but there's also a lot who didn't take advantage of any resources, because I went to the career center and I would talk to them, and I went to like the career fair, and I had my my resume reviewed like 4 times by different people. So like I took advantage of the resource, but like people don't do that. And
so do you know of any kids out of your class that still are unemployed?
Off the top of my head, I don't believe so, because they were either kids were still going back to school or they were graduated, had jobs lined up. I was one of the, out of my like little class, it was I was probably the last one to get a job, or one of the last.
Oh, great!
So
yeah, good. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, I got the bottom of the barrel. Awesome, fantastic. So, what do you think that class should look like for colleges? Like, what would be the kind of the key things you'd want to get out of that now?
So one would be like interview skills, because that's huge. Like, I mean, like I said, that we had to take a class on public speaking and stuff like that, but I think that's not required anymore or something. But I mean, that would definitely be a key part. 2 would probably be the whole networking thing. Like that would be like people like I still suck at networking. I mean, I'm still new to it, of course, but like, I mean, like, look at me this morning, twiddling my thumbs there. But
I saw you go off and talk to somebody you knew.
Okay, but
what?
I don't give myself enough credit. But
no, he doesn't. He doesn't.
That's for
we've got to work on some language things here.
Interviewing, networking, and then part of the whole job searching, and because like. I know a lot of people that just went to the job boards and started looking. Like, like if they understood the networking aspect that, I understand now, tapping into those existing networks, because that was, people either had jobs lined up through family or friends, or they were constantly hunting like I was. So I feel like that'd be a nice snapshot of if not a required class, like just something that's definitely optional, put out in front of people. But the issue with that is just if it's optional, people aren't always going to, take advantage of it.
Yeah. Well, I mean...
And that's for anything, I guess.
Well, it's interesting, too, when working with clients, that haven't had success on the job boards. And when we look at that, and you look at the number of companies between, say, Baltimore and Philadelphia in that corridor, there's like 60,000 companies. And most of them are hiring. But if you look at the percentage of companies that are on those job boards, it's a very low percentage. It's like the top, it's like 2 to 4%, 5% of the companies are actually advertising on the job boards. So, that the whole networking aspect, it opens up all of the other companies that are out there looking to fill their jobs. So, and sometimes they're like, well, I know I need something, but I don't have the resource. I don't have a dedicated HR resource to go out and post this, and everybody's too busy. So, they're hiring the referrals that people are bringing into them, and that's where the power of the networking really comes in. That was our last session on intentional networking. Very good dovetailing. Good job.
Yes. And that leads us into well, we don't have one next week because the Halloween, the holiday. The following week is the Millennials in the workforce. So you get to pick me apart, I guess, right? That's what
I
we're
can
doing.
show you as a shining example of why millennials don't suck.
That's true.
So, which is always a mild frustration for me when people come down to millennials, because it's my experience with millennials. Yourself and others that I know aren't the stereotype of the needy, coddled millennial generation that has been portrayed on TV.
Oh, can I have a raise, by the way?
No. You get a raise, but I get a raise. You get a raise and like it. Yeah. So what on the millennials in the workforce? I know you've done. You wrote a blog post on this as well. Like, what are you seeing from the millennials?
Well, it's definitely, there's not a huge difference between each generation, but then those differences that that are apparent, that they blow them out of proportion. But there are some things that I think that I would value more than maybe you value, or so I'm not always, like I said, I'm not always the typical millennial, but I know, I can attest to this and many others, people are more about experiences than having tangible things. Personally, I'd rather have a car than go to Europe, but that. But then when it comes to the workforce, flexibility is something huge, and that's what it's great for me. I have the Tim gives me the flexibility that I desire, and things flexibility and doing something that really matters, and when I ask why, I get an explanation. I don't just get because. There has to be a sense of purpose. And not that I'm saying that your generation was blindly leaded to the.
No, but I think that's a management style too, right? Because I've worked in a bunch of workplaces where the best management has been, here's why we're doing this, right? And then I think people get far more engaged when they know the why, right? And versus just do it and like it, or do it and don't like it. I don't care, which is kind of the other end of the spectrum, and that's always I think that's frustrating for everybody. Because, okay, maybe if I'm a clerk or something, it's all right, well, I'll push that button instead of this button. But, in this, I think good management always comes back and says, if you understand why, and you're a smart guy, you'll probably figure out maybe even a better way to do it.
And it doesn't hinder me. I have no problem speaking up or, putting in my opinion or, like you said, kind of. And
I have no problem ignoring
Let's do this instead of this. And, I don't feel like I'm out of my, zone or comfort zone or out of my place or anything like that. But,
what else do millennials want?
It's not always all about the money.
Well, clearly, because you work here.
You get both sides of it. I guess we could use me job hunting. Remember at the very beginning, I was interviewing for another company, and this was a large nationwide corporation, and they, I was it was between Tim and 5 Squared, where it was just a few of us, or there was this large company where there's thousands and thousands of employees. Yeah, I'd make more money there. I was like, okay, but then what's the other benefit? Oh, it's an hour away. Nope. I have to work 12-hour days. Nope. Who knows how I'm gonna. It's that big company. There's no flexibility. Maybe there is, but from the outside, from me looking, it just kind of turned me off. And I'm looking at a small business where I could help grow. It's closer. It's in York. I enjoy downtown, especially after having a social entrepreneurship class where I got to learn more about what they're doing downtown and how they're trying to bring it back up. But so looking at the two, where it's helping grow a small business or just being another person in a company, and with my degree, that's kind of what they wrapped us around, starting a business, taking over a family business, or innovating within a business. And I'm thinking, where am I going to have a bigger impact? A smaller business or this large one who probably has there's set ways, and you know, there's no going around it.
Well, and then you open up competition. So, you know, this is one of the other things that I found is that companies say, oh, yeah, we're very flexible. You can, you know, take the time, do whatever you want during lunch or whatever. But then the competitive side comes in where it says, well, there's 10 people not taking the lunches and working through that and working, you know, the 13-hour day instead of 12. And then you're taking the lunch off. And then even though you can do it, it doesn't necessarily allow you to what's the word I'm looking for? It makes you look bad, right? Because it's like, well, yeah, but Devon takes lunches off.
That's what it was about. It was all strictly about performance-based, like promotions and things like. And you know, not that I'm saying that's not right, but there's other factors that should go into that besides just performance.
Yeah. But, so are you saying millennials aren't performance-based?
I don't know. You know. Once again, it's like there's not huge differences, but there's these I mean, I say they're minor, but they're, you know, some are more important than others, and I mean, I don't want to give too much away. Like, you know, do we want to give too much away?
No, go ahead. Yeah.
I'm just like, I don't know. I'm just making sure. I thought we were giving a little sneak peek.
Oh, at the Millennials in the Workforce. Yes, come to the Millennials in the Workforce seminar. What's the date on that one?
I think it's like the 14th.
Yeah, the second Tuesday of the month, right? November. So, yeah, come to that, learn more. Learn what millennials want and need, and how we as leaders in business need to accommodate their skills and what they bring to the table. There's the plug for that.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah. What else is on your mind today, Devon?
I don't know. It's the end of the day, and my mind is just...
You know, I'm a little blown myself there. You know, it's just, whew. Busy day networking and getting some deals in. So, getting some work done. Well, good deal. Well, that's it for today's podcast. Find us next week when somebody
figure out that topic and
yeah. We'll probably talk a little bit more about millennials, and because we'll have a week off from the seminars. I didn't even realize I gave us a week gap there. That was pretty good planning on my part.
And I think there's another one for Thanksgiving. So then that one's the last one. The very final event is I think it's on IT.
Yeah, information technology for small business.
Yeah, that is the first week of December. So that would be our last event. So we have a couple over this month. So definitely check them out.
Yeah, sounds good. It's on our website, 5square.com/events. Fantastic. All right. Any last thing? Have you seen any movies lately?
No. I'd probably go see Thor next week, and that's probably Thor, and that's probably it. I don't know. I haven't been going to the movies.
We might have to take a Thor movie day for the firm here. Because that's on the list.
We'll run out of the theater.
Yeah, we'll definitely run out of the theater. Fantastic. All right, thanks a lot, everybody.
I'll see you.
Thank you so much for listening to the show with your host, Tim Fives. We hope you will pass along our web address, 5square.com, to your friends and colleagues. Be sure to check out our archive section on our website for previous podcasts. Follow us on Twitter at 5squared or follow us on Facebook. This has been a 5 Squared production. Join us next time for another edition of the 5 Squared Podcast.